What's up everyone, Moniz here, and today I'm reviewing the Microsoft Surface Studio. This is an all-in-one computer with some pretty sweet tricks up its sleeves. I'm starting to have this huge fascination with all-in-ones. A lot of manufacturers are taking a big interest in creating these gorgeous products that completely differentiate themselves from the traditional big box desktop computer. Microsoft announced this last year, and I've been sort of obsessed with this design ever since. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it's a very niche product, but in a few iterations, it could possibly be your next purchase. Well, assuming you want to spend $3,500 US on a computer. So here's my review. It's hard to talk about the Surface Studio without mentioning the iMac. The design is very similar in some ways. They both have these gorgeous displays and a base on the bottom, but the big difference is that Microsoft stuck all the internals in the base. One thing's for sure is that the Surface Studio looks and feels solid. These solid metal hinges are thick, durable, and strong, and manage to move up and down smoother than the cream cheese on your bagel. Microsoft is calling the hinge a zero-gravity hinge because it can move down flawlessly to a 20-degree angle, making it the perfect drafting table. This is definitely the star of the design. I can't think of any other all-in-one that can do this so well, or even if at all. The back of the display is clean with just the Microsoft logo, and the right side holds the volume controls and power button. Both sides of the display have magnets in them, so the included Surface Pen can stick to the side without getting lost. The base is a tiny square box with all the ports located on the back. It comes with 4 USB 3.0 ports, 1 SD card slot, mini display port, and an audio jack. Unfortunately, there's no USB Type-C or Thunderbolt 3 port. I'm also a bit disappointed that there's no HDMI in. It would have been nice to use this gorgeous display with another computer, especially down the road when the hardware starts to feel dated. Okay, so instead of opening it up and risk breaking something because I'm clumsy, iFixit has a great video on how to open it. In short, the only thing that's upgradable is the 2.5-inch hard drive and M2 64GB SATA SSD. These drives work together to offer a hybrid storage solution. The only negative is that the 2TB or 1TB Seagate drives are only 5,400 RPMs. I'm super surprised manufacturers are still using 5,400 RPM drives in consumer devices. Thankfully, these can be swapped out. In terms of specs, you're essentially getting last year's laptop experience inside of a desktop computer. My unit is the most expensive configuration, retailing for $4,200 US, and it comes packed with a 6th Gen i7 6820HQ processor, 32GB of RAM, and a GTX 980M graphics card. My feeling is the Surface Studio was in development for quite some time, and it was planned with the Maxwell GPUs instead of the more newer, much faster Pascal ones. Last year's specs aside, the screen makes up for it. This thing is absolutely stunning. It's 28 inches with a resolution of 4500 by 3000. It's above 4K resolution using an aspect ratio of 3:2, which is similar to other Surface products. Microsoft uses this ratio because it actually offers more room on your screen to work with. It's better for photography, and because the screen is so big, you can have an actual 8.5 by 11 document open that is the exact same size as the piece of paper. The screen is touch enabled, very bright, and extremely color accurate. In fact, it reached sRGB and Adobe RGB ratings of over 100%. Plus, it supports the DCI P3 color space for digital movie projection, so a very wide color gamut, making this monitor a creator's wet dream. Speaking of creators, I found this geared more towards artists that need a pen to draw in color. My father, who is a retired graphic designer, used to design and produce print work for companies like Loblaw, Staples, and Home Hardware here in Canada. He is absolutely terrible with computers and was able to learn how to sketch and draw on it pretty quickly. He was super impressed and said that he would have loved to have something like this even 10 years ago. It would have made his job much easier. Now, due to its design, the Surface Studio is a fantastic family computer as well. My 4-year-old daughter had a blast learning how to use the ruler and creating some of the best stick people ever. It was awesome to see her so focused and tapping on the different pens to change the size and colors. Microsoft sells an optional $100 Surface dial that can be used for certain functions, so when I was sketching, I could change the hue by rotating the dial or changing the orientation and size of my drawing. It works in other applications too, like scrolling up and down, increasing the volume, or zooming in and out of web pages. It works with Premiere as well, but it's very limited and very very buggy. It pretty much only lets you jog through your timeline, but without any accuracy. I'd love the dial to catch on. It's a great tool. It just depends whether third-party developers will want to support it. Sound is another area that a lot of engineering went into. Because the screen moves up and down, you don't want the sound to be hampered by its movement. So what Microsoft did was install 7 speakers. 4 speakers into the bottom of the display, plus 3 speakers in the base, one of them being a subwoofer. So no matter which position I had the display in, the sound was consistent. Now don't get me wrong, this is not going to replace your home theater, but I think it's more than loud enough for most people. It had nice highs, mids, bass, and didn't distort at max volume. In terms of performance, the Surface Studio is more than fast enough to handle everyday tasks like browsing the web, watching media, sketching, and working in Microsoft Office. It's also capable of handling more intensive tasks like Photoshop, like CAD work, and even editing 4K video, especially if you opt for the model with the 980M. Now, if you're a gamer, unfortunately the 965M isn't the best GPU to play games with. It can handle most titles fine if you drop the resolution to 720p on high or 1080p on low. But if you opt for the 980M model, it's pretty much equivalent to a gaming laptop with a GTX 1050 Ti. So you can play most games comfortably at 1080p. Now, because this has such a small design and everything is crammed packed into a small base, I was expecting the Surface Studio to overheat under full load, but it handled my stress test extremely well. You can see the heat pouring out the sides so the fans are doing their jobs, pushing it away from the center. The surface temperature, no pun intended, never exceeded 40 degrees Celsius, and even under full load, there was no thermal throttling. Alright, so here's my closing thoughts. Microsoft created an engineering marvel. The hinge, the sound, the design is exceptional, and the display is one of the nicest and best I've ever used. But the inside feels dated with its spinning hard drives and last year's laptop components. These are things I wouldn't want in a $3,000 computer. Sure, if you don't game or edit 4K video, it will be fine for most people, but most people who buy this will want it to be fast enough to last a very long time. Regardless, I can't help being drawn to the Surface Studio. It's Microsoft's best work and it'll only push other vendors to make their products even better. Now, it's hard for me to recommend the Surface Studio to a regular consumer, but artists or designers may find it more valuable than a Wacom tablet. As for me, I can't keep my hands off this, and I'm super excited to see what Microsoft does with the Surface Studio 2. So that wraps up my review of Microsoft's Surface Studio. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. I want to thank everyone out there for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And as always, I will see you in the next video.